Energy. It is all around us, both seen and unseen. It affects all the lives within humanity, our great planet Earth, and the entire universe. It is a conscious cosmic matrix, an ever-evolving cycle, creating, breaking down, and recreating. This is Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Andrea tells us that energy is the foundation of our human experience, intrinsically affecting every facet of our lives, our perceptions, choices, and actions, as well as the challenges, opportunities, and people we attract. So now, please welcome the host of Connected, Andrea Dragonfly.
Hey, welcome. Welcome to another show of Connected. I'm your host, Andrea Dragonfly. And in this show series, we are looking at energy and how everything about our human experience is connected to energy. So, for the last several weeks, I have been talking about these energetic forces, spiritual forces that are prevalent in our human experience. I was talking about what was called the Ahrimanic force. And this is a spiritual force that comes from outside of us. It kind of pressures down on us. And it's about judgment. It's about right and wrong, good and bad, but also like better than, where we can begin to see how we separate ourselves through cultural beliefs or even within community beliefs or ideas that say that one is better than another. And we can also look at that throughout our world and how do different cultures interact. How is this way is the right way and you need to follow this way. And if you don't, then there's something there's going to be some sort of punishment, there's going to be some sort of discipline, there's going to be some sort of, an act to put you back into the right, quote unquote, order of what is expected of people within these different cultures, communities, or whatnot. And then also it becomes targets. This belief system can target groups and individuals because they're different, because they're not what would be called the status quo of what that culture is enforcing, that belief system. And again, for examples, we're talking about the isms of the world, right? Whether there's like a race that's better than another race, whether there is a gender better than another gender, whether there is heterosexuality versus homosexuality. So we're looking at the unique differences of humanity and how certain cultures can enforce rules and laws even to say, no, you are going to either cease that or there'll be consequences in some way. And so we can look at structural violence. This all comes from that Ahrimanic energy. And then we also looked at Luciferic energy. And that energy is the other big evil of the world. And I talked about how this comes from inside. And it's something that lives within us. It's part of our human design. It's a spiritual force that is here to grow us. It's here to evolve our egos and actually expand us in consciousness, because it's through free will and choice. And so all of this is going to be kind of wrapped up in this part of our conversation today. And again, with that Luciferic energy, this is those temptations. And we can even look at rules, right? There's rules in belief systems, there's rules in society. Don't steal, don't cheat, don't harm someone else, right? And so we have these rules, and these rules are set up because there are people who have an inner drive to take what's not theirs or to play with the boundary of what's acceptable. But what both of these two energies have in common is it's very much about a selfish way. It's about, for me, Even if it's group collective thinking, it's about we believe this is better than what else exists. And because we're human and we're going to be filled with diversity, it doesn't apply to everybody. And so it's about separation again. And that Luciferic force is also very selfish, very much about I want for me, and I'm going to take what I want, right? And I don't care who I hurt along the way. Hopefully you don't find out, trying to be sneaky about it and all that. And then last week we talked about the goodness that lives within. So because we are having these two very intense forces at play, and we can see them in every aspect of our news and what's happening. Of course, the news likes to really, present some of the hardships of life, so when a lot of people don't want to watch the news because it's too, emotionally activating for people. It really rouses them up because there's a lot of bad happening in the world. There's a lot of injustice, things that are not fair. And so those are those components from these two dense, dark energies playing out in humanity. And so I was encouraging you, look at the news, look at even like movies and things like that, scary movies, thrillers, whatever, and look at how, is this an Ahrimanic force or is this that Luciferic force? And then the way that we prevail, how do we make it through with these very dense energies? And I talked about a pyramid. And so if we have this Ahrimanic force down here, I'm going to use my elbows here. So if I have this Ahrimanic force here and we have this Luciferic force here, the way we move through is through the good that is part of our human design. This is all that is good. And we can call this many things because everybody can come from a different cosmology and idea of where we've come from, different belief systems, religion, spiritual paths. Even people who might not believe in anything, atheism, still have some sort of knowing that there is something greater than themselves, but they don't really know what that is. But it's that power. It's the power of kindness, the power of good, and that it's inherent within all of us. It's part of our human design, and it's to bring us through these trials of the Ahrimanic influence, the trials of the temptations of the Luciferic influence, and so that we can grow our egos. Because we are at this phase in humanity where we're growing our ego. And again, we have this lower ego that is all about wanting to be acknowledged and wanting to have that me individuality, acknowledgement, but also, one for ourselves. Oftentimes people who are very much about, oh, look what I've done, my achievements, all this kind of stuff. That's great. We want to honor and respect everybody's achievements, but we also know that when we only think of ourselves better than others, that can be a lower ego component that we are being asked to expand, to grow ourselves in consciousness. And so we also have what's called that higher ego. And that higher ego moves into the recognition that I've worked really hard. I've done amazing things. I'm coming into the service. I'm coming into the world with good support, with good intentions, with a desire to help others. And it's not just about me, but it becomes the greater good of the we. So it's kind of the greater good of all, right? And so that goodness that lives within, it's inherent in every one of us. I also talked last week about how sometimes, from a very early age, a child can display like behaviors that are always kind of destructive. And so we look at good being constructive and bad being destructive. But I also want to say that there really is no good or bad. This is another conversation we're going to have, because good and bad can invoke these certain things. What I'd like to invite us to look at is this constructive? Is this creative? Is this helpful? Or is this destructive? Is this destroying? Is this constricting? Is this separating and unhelpful, right? So we want to look at language too, and how language can invoke. Because when we're moving in to the conversation of karma today, we're looking in at how every action has a reaction. There's the universal law of cause and effect. And so this is actually a spiritual principle. It's a law that lives within our energy fields. And just like how we create our reality. So every energetic experience, every kind of activation that we're feeling, whether it's joy and bliss and excitement and that kind of stuff, that puts out an energy frequency out into the cosmos, out into the field, the energy field. And then, and if we have kind of ill will feelings and we're grumbling under our breath and we hope somebody, gets what they deserve or whatever, we're also putting that lower vibrational energy, that anger, that conflict oriented energy, resentment, whatever. And that goes and trickles out into the world. And so these have a relationship. They help create our life experience. And so we can look at it in many ways. And so even the conversation of karma, and I put it out there that it's not what you think it is. However, what do we even know that it is? Now, if any of you out there are following more of an Eastern philosophical spiritual path, then karma is definitely something that is a very foundational energy. You know this. You know that this is a principle and a process that is that what we put out into the world will have a reaction and will come back at us with an equal impact. And this can even be within our mental, our emotional, and even our physical doings, our acts, the way we think, the way we feel, and what we do, right? Now, it's not just an Eastern philosophical principle. This is also very much steeped within other wisdom traditions, whether it's earth-centered, indigenous, whether it's the Western esoteric and the old mystery schools, the Western mystery schools that came out of Greece and Egypt. Yet the word karma in itself is a Hindu word, which means deed or act or action. So it's this energy that we do. So who are we being when we do this? Because that energy is going to emit out into the field. And then oftentimes we're going to look at how, not that we even can see it, but in some way that energy will return to us. And so we're going to look today at different ways that we can look at karma. We're going to look at what can be called helpful karma and also what we can call unhelpful karma. When we look at what we just talked about with the big evils of the world, the Ahrimanic influence and the Luciferic influence, we can see what kind of karma will be reaped, from what we've sown. So the thing is, if we sow out this energy and we do these acts, then we're going to reap what we've sown. So we're going to kind of get that back in equal impact. And so it's important for us to look at this. Now, karma is far more than what would be called retribution, right? And so in some belief systems, there's that punishment that if you do a harmful act, or you do something that we can also call bad, even though I just kind of clarified that, to another person, then there is a redemption that needs to happen. And so there's the retribution. Let me not say redemption, but retribution that's going to come out of that. And so we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back from this quick commercial, we're going to dive right into that and look at that more deeply as well. So grab a drink of water, and I'll see you back here in 2 minutes. Thank you.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense Radio Show with host Dr. Broderick. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hey there, welcome back. So we are getting ready to dive into karma. And we're going to look at how there are different ways in which karma shows up. And so this is actually going to be one of several conversations about karma, because karma is a really big subject. It's a really big, vast concept to really understand how it even works, in our lives. And most people really associate karma with usually a person doing something that can be considered bad or wrong or harmful. And, I've heard many people say, God, I hope that that karma comes back to them, right? And so what I'd like to clarify is that, yes, by all means, that is one way that we can look at karma. We can say that, it is the cause, and it's the effect of what we are doing to somebody else. It could be one person, it could be multiple people, it can even be, animals, the land, it could be anything that's living. So I just want to also bring that into our field, because it's really about our relationship with life and all things that are living. And of course, we know that people who have some severe behavioral issues, let's just say, who may, hurt animals. We know that those who hurt animals are more likely to also hurt humans. And so we're looking at, the different ways that psychosis can show up in different people. And so all of this, again, is this process. And so we can see that when it happens with people who are actually being more destructive. But karma is also something that exists within every being, every human being. And no matter what we choose to do, there's always an effect. So if we're causing some sort of energetic, there's an effect. So we can also accrue good karma. We can accrue helpful karma, karmas that's going to help us within our next, within this lifetime, as well as within the next lifetime. So karma is very much connected to reincarnation. So there's the life, death, rebirth process, also known as samsara within within the Eastern philosophies. And so this is where this is the evolution. And as I talk about the evolution of the ego and through free will. And so we're looking at the opportunity that if we do good deeds, if we're helpful, if we're in service in some way, we accrue this energy because we're inherently good. Like we talked about from the last show, that goodness by being able to spread that and bring that to more than just the people that are immediately in our lives. That could be our significant people that we hang out with, our community, our family, our colleagues, our friends, but even beginning to show that kindness and generosity to people that you don't know, right? And many people do that through donations and being able to recognize when a person's on the side of the street with a tire that needed to be fixed. There's lots of stories that we hear about the good Samaritan that's come, doing random acts of kindness. And so these are ways that we actually can accrue good karma and heal even some of the collected karma that we've been bringing from our past lifetimes into this life. And so I'd like to start by saying that, yes, within the theory, and so much of this, I'm going to use theory because there's other people out there that don't believe in this theory, just like there's the one life theory of we only get one life and you're going to be the best person you can be in that life, and then you die and then you live eternally in heaven. That's a theory. And then here is the reincarnation theory, which lives deeply within the foundation of many different belief systems. And it's through here that we are looking that we live out all these different lives. Reincarnation isn't that you are just going to, for example, I am going to own that I grew up as a middle-class white woman in the United States, and that through my experience to life, and I have to acknowledge that I've had a certain level of privileges throughout my life that has allowed me to actually devote my life to the spiritual path. I didn't have to worry about survival, about a roof over my head. I didn't have to worry about the food that I was going to eat that day, or about getting my education. Like, all of those things were part of my privilege in this lifetime. However, all of my lifetimes haven't been this way, right? So we get to live these different lifetimes because throughout each of these incarnations, we are going to experience a myriad of different life events. I'm going to be the victim in certain scenarios, whereas I'm going to be, under attack. Somebody's going to be attacking me for something. It could be my belief system. It could be my color. It could be, again, all those isms that we were talking about with the Ahrimanic force. Well, they've been around for millennia, right? And so they've been around for thousands of years. And so when we look at over the course, we have multiple lives that we come in and we get to learn, we get to experience. And not only am I the victim in some lives, but I'm also the perpetrator. I'm also the one that is, using that axe to cut off somebody else's head in some way. And so this is where we learn about the human experience. This is where we have, in this moment, this lifetime, that we become consciously aware. Who am I today? What am I doing? What have I brought in with me? What have been my trials? What have been my, my difficulties, my challenges in this lifetime? How was my childhood, my youth? What came in with that? So we can look at how our karma will actually even bring us into these lifetimes so that we can work out some of the energetics that we have accrued in past lifetimes. So, for example, I'm going to use this example. I used it way back in one of the earlier episodes, but even the shamans of South America. And so the Laika shamans talked about how even within the indigenous populations, the Spanish conquistadors came and they absolutely annihilated the populations. They saw them as savage. And so they did They went through, at all costs to contain them, to conform them, to completely wipe away their belief system and bring in Christianity. And of course, and we can look at this through all indigenous cultures in North America, Central America, South America. We can even look at around in Africa. We can look at wherever colonialism has come that says this is the better way, that people, their belief systems in some way have completely been obliterated in some respect, right? And so then they talk about, I'm talking about the Leica shamans, they talk about how through these acts, through the conquistadors coming into, let's just even say Peru, that when they annihilate the people and they kill and they force and they use all of these very dense energies to control power, to be the authority, to manipulate, people who are living peacefully with nature, that they, and again, I also want to say that even within our indigenous of the Americas, there was definitely sacrifice and there was different beliefs to the cosmology. So there was definitely some, energetics going on there. But again, I just want to point out that there was still this connection that was not acknowledged. And so they talk about how the conquistadors and the indigenous will reincarnate back and forth for several lifetimes. One is the oppressor, harshly inflicting their view, their judgment, their perspective of what they believe is right and true, and how the indigenous are wrong and bad for having a different kind of life, a different experience to the creator, to whatever you want to call it, right? To the divine forces, the allness, the oneness, the consciousness of the cosmos, God, whatever that is for you. And so then with the force in which the conquistadors had enacted, we can even look at this within our own North America, within, the the taking over of our First Nations people, right? Then they actually reincarnate as a First Nations person. They reincarnate as the indigenous at the effect, at the judgment in which they had in the last lifetime. So again, this is one example of innumerable examples. So we look to see, who were we? What are we judging in this lifetime? Or what are we defending even within our own selves in this lifetime? Because that can very much have a karmic connection to what had happened with, with you in your past life. And so when we look at even like taking away the free will, the consent, the basic human rights of another human being, it comes at a very hefty cost to that person. And that person is going to accrue harmful and, I'm going to say like destructive karma. And they may have to live that out in several lifetimes for them to get the full impact of their action. So again, this karma it's a spiritual process of cause and effect, and it actually is based on our own doing. It has nothing to do with the above or the divine, the creator, God, Jesus, whoever. We create our own experiences to learn from. It's the free will of our choice. And so when we recognize this, it's within that goodwill that gets activated that says, I want something different. I don't want to be in this loop anymore. I want to be able to have that other life. And we can look at even like our socioeconomic differences, between those who have and those who have not, those who have resources and those that don't have resources. And sometimes, those who have, excessive resources and are using them excessively and are not thinking about, their impact on the rest of the people, and I'm even thinking about like, corporations and about how they will step on the backs of others. They'll step on the backs of, the land communities in which they're using, maybe they're mining, or maybe they are deforesting for farming or whatever. They're not thinking about the consequences of how that is for the innumerable people that live nearby. If they're polluting into the rivers, and all of that then seeps into the farmlands, or even just the rivers and the water table. And we can look at that throughout the United States. We've seen many different types of issues that have shown up. And so these are the things that we're not thinking about what our actions are, but these actions come with an impact. And so with that impact, we will experience some of that in this lifetime. Many people think, oh, they're just going to get it in the next lifetime. But they're also accruing that, and they will get it in the next lifetime. And they may actually be at the effect of their doing. If they're polluting the water, they may be one of the peoples whose farm is the most polluted in the next lifetime. I'm just giving you this example. Now, I also want to just be clear, and we're about to head into another commercial, but I also just want to be clear that there's so much to humanity. There's so much diversity. There's so much life. And so just because this happens here, and we're going to move into this when we get back, doesn't mean that this is exactly how it always is, So I also want to invite you to expand, to play with this, and we're going to play with it a little bit more when we come back from commercial. And when we come back from commercial, again, this is a live show. If you have any questions, if there's certain things coming up for you, of course, we're just diving into this. There's going to be, several different conversations around this. But you are welcome to call the number at the bottom of the screen, get your voice heard, ask any questions about anything that I'm already talking about, or maybe even something that I talked about in previous episodes that I'm bringing in. So anything about clarity or how might you apply this within your own life, anything like that is welcome too. We're going to go ahead and take another quick break. And in that time, do your thing, and I'll see you back here, and we'll dive further in.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
It was almost instant, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com. or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hey, welcome back. So we are looking at karma. And we are looking at how, again, this is cause and effect. It's also a universal law. And it's really based on our own doing. We are not cursed by the heavens, by something greater than ourselves because we've, done something bad in the past. So it's not that they've done this to us, it's that we do this to ourselves. And this is, again, about our free will and our choice, right? And I also want to say that we have what's called personal karma. This is the karma that we accrue as an individual conscious being, our spirit that travels through incarnation to incarnation, having these different life experiences where in this lifetime, whatever it is that where you are, you could have been a slave in another country from somewhere. You could have been a farmer. You could have been a prince. You could have been a leader in some way. So we can really look, you could have been a pirate, you could have been many things, right? And if we look at all these lifetimes, we have been many things, and that we are accruing that into this lifetime. Now, there's also more than just our individual karma. There's something also known as group karma. And this is where we can look at this even within our families. This is like lineage or ancestral karma. But it can also be community karma. If we did something that was very helpful for other communities, like I would say that there's some amazing things happening over currently in India right now, building water sheds and being able to retain water. And they're doing this to multiple communities throughout India so that when the dry seasons come, and even in Africa, they will have water that sustains throughout the whole year. But then also there could be certain communities that are very Ahrimanic, very judgmental. Like if a person of color were to walk in and they call the cops and the cops come and, there's brutality and things like that. And we know that that exists too. And so there's community karma that we then become part of. And so it's like whether, and oftentimes it's about, well, what are we doing to either acknowledge it, to address it, even if we acknowledge it, but are we going to address it? Are we going to say something about it? Do you agree with it? Do you want it to continue? So it's really that energetic that lives within you, right? And so we can even look at not just community, but we can even look at state. And we can look at, so the groups get bigger and bigger, and there's karmas to that. I mean, we can look at Texas. And if you're from Texas, and you might love Texas, great. But, Texas is, very, has very strong belief systems that aren't necessarily very accepting or allowing of diversity, right? And we're looking at diversity. We are all human, and that you might be a woman in this lifetime, or maybe you're a man in this lifetime. But in the next lifetime, usually what happens is that we will then become the other gender, the other sex. So I'm going to have a woman experience in this lifetime. And then my next lifetime, I'm going to most likely become a man. And part of this is that we are always, like, we're already made of egg and sperm. We are both feminine and masculine within these bodies, but we take on a gender, and we have a gendered experience. And if we look at history, we can look at, there's very many, like, history is filled with gendered experiences, right? About man being, usually we're looking at the patriarchy and how long has the patriarchal way been the way for, humanity. We can look at this in different, of course, as an anthropologist, I can look at this in different tribes and different cultures around the world and how these things play out. And so, oftentimes the masculine is the power, the control, the authority. And the women are at the effect of it in a certain way, right? And so then we shift it. And the men who are in those power, control, and authoritative ways, who are very strong in their belief systems, who are very also possibly cruel, are going to come back as a female, be at the effect. Men who rape women, who hurt them, who abuse them physically, sexually, emotionally, mentally. And I know that women do that to men too. So it's not just that. but we often see that as kind of the majority lives within that because they're stronger. And then, there's many reasons as to why those things happen, but they all will have a karmic effect on us. And so one of the things I also wanted to mention is that we are, and we're going to talk about lineage karma. I wanted to mention about lineage karma because the people in which the families that we're born into, and the family karma can be a very big process of our discovery about ourselves and about healing. And we can heal this within ourselves by acknowledging, well, what is the pattern that lives within my family's lineage line? And of course, we have both our mother's lineage and we also have our father's lineage. And so that's obviously how we were created. So we have that lives within us. Oftentimes, our karma from past lives will choose the lineage that is going to help kind of bring us into that place of being, of confrontation, of confronting the things that we've done in the past or the things that have come to us that we're here to overcome. And everything is a learning process. It's a learning opportunity. It's a place that we arrive to that says, I don't want to be part of this anymore. I don't want to be part of it. The disconnection of, I use the word disconnection. I don't want to be disconnected to my family anymore. I don't want to have this relationship with my father that we can't really get real with each other. I want to shift and change that. However, maybe that is lineage. Maybe, throughout each generation that has played out a part where, father, even if it's fathers and sons, where there is this transference that says, I have to be tough on you. I can't show emotion with you. I can't love you, because you're a man. And there comes this lineage, generational lineage energy that started somewhere that said, I can't show true, authentic, connective love with my son because you need to be tough and you need to have it tough in order for you to succeed. Well, that's just a trauma story that happened way back in the lineage somewhere, right? Or within the matrilineal line, the mother's line. It can be anything. It could be similar. It could be that too. Mom has to be tough on the daughters. Or maybe there's just, some sort of energetic where, there is, always wanting better from your daughter than you had for yourself and being really tough on the daughters or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm making some stuff up, but I'm making things up from, lineage in which I've worked with. I work with people. I work with their karma. I work with their patterns. I help them understand, what has this life brought to them? Is this karmic? And often, the karmic energy is intrinsically part of us. It's part of our soul's journey. I talked about the soul being the navigation, device within us. We have the physical body, the emotional, mental body, the soul body, the spirit body. And it's that soul body that's kind of intrinsically wrapped with our karma that brings us to the people, to the places, to the experiences, to the opportunities that we have for us to heal and overcome. And we can really work out some of these karmas through recognizing and shifting and changing these behaviors, expanding our awareness, expanding our consciousness to say, it doesn't work to fight the fight with the fight. I need to come at it a different way. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm locked in, the ram's heads, they're not going anywhere. So here we're okay, what's my different choices? How can I do something different here? And this is where we begin to connect into that goodness that lives within. How do I become generous? How do I become kind? How do I bring this to a different level? How can I make a difference and not only help clear the karma of my past, but also create good karma for my future? Even if my future is next week, right? They say if you can go out and give food to the homeless, or, leave $1, or, somewhere randomly, and that, cause and effect. If you give randomly, goodness will come to you again, randomly as well. So you can reap that in this lifetime, and you can reap that in the next lifetime as well. Reaping the good by choosing free will to put that energy forward and really allowing ourselves to clear those things in the past. But also having compassion. Compassion, we look at all the people who are out there who are doing really harsh things to others, and it's just like, giving them love, because I know their karma is going to put them in that situation and give them an impact in the same energetic as to what they're doing to others. So we're going to go ahead and take our last break here. And this is a shorter segment that we have. And when we get back, we're going to connect into this within ourselves. So go ahead and do what you need to do, and I'll see you back here in 2.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. We discover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Welcome back. So we are going to close this part of the evening with looking at karma within ourselves. We all have it. It's part of every aspect of our life experience. And it is something that we will continue to have as we move forward. And so it's like, what are we accruing? What have we done in our past? What are we doing right now? And what can I do to actually really begin to clear all of the things I've done? Because I know, as we grow older, we look back at our lives and I'm like, oh God, when I was, 16, I was terrible. When I was 22, oh my goodness, I did these things. Or, oh my God, my ego was so inflated when I was 27. Whatever that is, and how that might have impacted people in different ways. And then, of course, even in this place of forgiveness, this place of that we know that we've done something that actually we might carry within ourselves that feels heavy, Maybe there's some guilt, maybe there's some shame attached to this. And we can begin to clear that, heal that. We can own that in certain ways and and really work it and create the karma of helpfulness, of healing, of goodness by doing the things that we know live within that good, that live within that being helpful, being of service, being, love, unconditional love, being compassion, being forgiveness again, grace. So we can begin to shift the karma within us by becoming, first of all, aware of it. And then also recognizing, well, what's my choice? Where do I want to go? If I'm still stuck in my mindset that says all these people are wrong because they're different, that is going to have a karma. That might put you into that exact place of being who you think is wrong. If there's racism that lives within the family, then, and it's a strong energetic, you may come back to be the race in which you have a strong, opinion of wrong and bad and whatever. And so this is where we begin to just let it go. We open up. We release these judgments. We recognize the temptations that maybe that we even did within, some part of our life, or if you haven't really had a full life yet, but be aware of, they're coming. We're always at the effect of these energetics, and it's about our free will and choice that grows our ego and that puts us further along on the spiritual path. And we're like, what is this all about? What are we doing? Who are we as humans? And we will have that conversation because there is a much bigger picture as we evolve. Who are we evolving into, right? It's not about greed. It's not about me. It's no longer, we're moving out of that old paradigm, which we've been under for thousands of years. And we are in a whole new paradigm since 2012. If you heard about like everything's changing, the world's ending as we know it, we shifted paradigms. And that's why I say there's no coincidences that this show is coming to you right now, is because the world is changing. And the way that it's changing is it's evolving. And it's going to get intense. By all means. But that intensity is about your choice and your free will. The intensity doesn't, it's about, are you going to attach onto the fear and be afraid of what is different or go into that place of right, wrong, good, bad judgments? Or are you going to just help spread the peace, spread the love, spread the inspiration for others to actually follow suit so we can bring this world to a different place, because it's going to a different place. So where are you going to be along the way? So we're going to go ahead and I invite you to close your eyes. We're going to take 3 breaths, wash away the day with these breaths and really land ourselves with those 3 breaths. I invite you to bring your conscious awareness into your heart space. And really feel into your energy bodies, feeling into your physical body, feeling into your emotional body. Maybe there's something that was said today that kind of activated that. Feeling into your mental body as well. Was there something that activated that? Feeling into your soul body. Again, this is that navigation energy that brings us to the people, the places, the events, the life experiences that you have had and are having. And we're just going to pop into the core of us, that spirit body, because that spirit body is the wise part of us that has been gathering information since the beginning of our very first breath into consciousness. That part that is learning and being informed and continues to grow and expand. Now moving back into that soul place, I invite you to look at your life. And because there's so many different kinds of people with such diverse lives, I invite you to look at that part of you in your own personal karma. Was there a significant person that played a part in your life that feels karmic? Like, oh yeah. And if there is a person that has in some way inflicted pain or suffering or any bit of hurtfulness that might activate anger in you, check to see, is this a karmic partner, a person who came in to help give you an opportunity to grow? Because that's really what they are. They're opportunities for our growth. And I invite you to feel into where you are with them. And even if you're 14 years old, you might have a person that's bullied you or done something to you, or you had a break in belonging. So connect into that. Feel into whether you have understood what that was all about. What was the opportunity? And maybe it's unresolved still. If it's unresolved, I invite you to take this forward for the week and see if you could find the opportunity of growth, a lesson, something that allows you to let go and say yes. And sometimes it's about our strength, our ability to have that compassion, to recognize that that person who inflicted pain on you was also coming from a place of pain within them. And so right now we're just looking at the karmic relationships that we've had. And I invite you to bring compassion and even forgiveness to them, knowing that this is the way we free ourselves from these karmic energetics that can hold us and that can follow us throughout our lives. This is just one of many potential karmic examples of our lives, but it's always a significant one. It could be a first husband, ex-partner of some sort. So I invite you to bring forth unconditional love to this person, compassion and forgiveness. Help clearing the karmic path forward. You might get stuck in it, and that's okay. That's human. And it's not easy to do all this in one moment. But it's something that I invite you to work with throughout this week. We're going to continue this conversation next week. And I'd like to invite you to come back, bringing your awareness from your heart, from this person back into the present. And just really kind of land into your body again. I want to thank you for being with me this evening, today, in this conversation. And again, it's the beginning. There's so much about karma, and this is just kind of laying out some foundational energies to begin to play with. Now, if you want to reach out to me, you're definitely welcome to reach out to me at Facebook or Instagram at connected.dragonfly. You can also reach me at my website, www.andreadragonfly.com/connected or media or whatnot, and you can just find me there. And anyway, go have a beautiful week, end of springtime, and get connected with all that's around you. Have a good week.
This has been Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Join Andrea each week on an extraordinary journey, exploring the consciousness of energy and how you are connected. Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.